Well, happy Friday, good afternoon, pre-happy Thanksgiving, all the things, everybody. Welcome to MVP Office Hours on November 17th. I am Dale Ziegler. With me, as always, is Mr. Squire Kirshner. Say hello, Squire.
Hi, Squire.
Hi, Squire. Joy, I believe, will be joining us as well. Joy Shutter's helping. I know she's got a few things on her plate, but I believe her plan is to join us as well. If you want to connect with us through the internets, through the interwebs, there we are in the upper right corner. We have moved all of our personal stuff away from Twitter, X Twitter, Muskland, whatever. So you can, those are our LinkedIn handles. We do still have the @MVP Office Hours on Twitter, as well as the .info site. We have the Gmail email address, which you can email, but the out of office bounce is going to tell you, hey, go click into the group so that everybody can answer your question, which I think we have 4 or 5 that came in the last couple of weeks that we'll have teed up here. So definitely love the engagement there. We love it when questions get answered in between the 2 weeks. But also more than happy to bring them into the calls here so that we can open up to a broader live conversation. So definitely go check out that group. All right, next slide. So what are we doing here and when are we here? So we normally meet the first and third Friday of every month, which we've been on a good cadence the last couple of months. January is maybe going to throw a wrench in that. I haven't looked at the holiday calendar yet, but our next call will be in 2 weeks on December 1st. The 1st decided to sneak itself in as a Friday, so we will meet then, and then the 15th, and then obviously break for the holidays. It's meant to be an open Q&A about all things Salesforce, platform adjacent, whatever. Any open issues you may have, anything that we could potentially solve, any hypotheticals, any event stuff, like any and all of it. It's fair game. You can always register at that bit.ly as long as we have the meetings scheduled out, which again, we generally do when it happens to happen every other week, but we're going to hit an end of life on that here sometime middle of December and have to hit the reset button to get it going in January again. You can catch past recordings at any of those 3 links there, especially on YouTube. This is going to be number 252, I think, 251 or 252. We have all but number 1 on there. So you can always go back and get those. And we have been working to try to tag with time marks about what we talked about when and all of that to help. We're not perfect at it, but we have been trying. And if you post online, use your favorite hashtags. So more of what are we doing here? If you've never been here before, we want everybody to be able to share. If you have a question, have no shame about asking it. If you have the answer, be ready to answer it. Nothing says you have to be an MVP. We're all MVPs. We're all here to help each other, and that's what life is all about. And especially work. We're all here to help each other get through our work stuff and our Salesforce stuff. So yeah, let's help each other. If you have a question, you can either post it in the chat or raise your hand. If we didn't already have it in queue from the Trailblazer community group queue over the last couple of weeks, we do catch those first, and then it's first in, first out, either through chat or a raised hand. We also have the chat for anybody to share links and any other resources or to comment while on mute, whatever. We do have that window open. You can also share your screen, but please do not share production. We are recording, which the side disclaimer, if you are not comfortable being recorded or can't be recorded, please jump off, but we will have this recording posted to our YouTube channel sometime this weekend, as soon as this evening. But with that, please don't share production because it is being recorded. You don't want your company's data being shared, or if you're a consultant, you don't want your client's data. Pop open a sandbox or a dev org or anything like that, as long as it's not real data. And we want to have fun, but let's keep it professional. Like, this is being recorded. We have had to stop a few conversations that started to jab at people within the Salesforce ecosystem, or could potentially haunt us within our employers later on down the road, because the internet is forever. So let's just be mindful, but let's have fun. It's Friday afternoon. We're all friends here. We're all here to help each other, so we can absolutely have fun in a not unprofessional way. Community events, and I'll roll through this since we're at 08. Obviously everybody has heard of Dreamforce, or maybe you haven't because you're new to the Salesforce ecosystem, but the Salesforce events, there are ones that Salesforce puts on. Dreamforce World Tours, we'll have TDX coming up in the spring, but the community events in the upper right are events that those of us in the community have put together to still have that mini Dreamforce feel, but definitely be a lot more intimate and hands-on, a lot easier to get to meet people. Frankly, less expensive than a Dreamforce. You do get what you pay for, but in the end, dollars are dollars. So many opportunities. A lot of them are regional specific. Some of them are focus area specific. So next, or in 2 weeks, we got French Touch Dreaming in Paris, Kosovo, Manila in the Philippines. I didn't know Manila was spinning one up. That's awesome to hear. And then Cactus Force in Arizona, those last two being after the first of the year. So you can always click on that trailhead link up there to get more information on those conferences. And then, of course, World Tours in Chicago and New York in back-to-back weeks, and thinking about TDX before everybody's spring breaks. And then local user groups down in the lower right. I used to lead Kansas City, Squires leading Milwaukee, Joy leads one of the Chicago groups. It's a great place to actually meet people in person and share a meal, share a drink, share ideas, ask questions, but actually have that in-person face-to-face interaction. It's a great way to get to meet and continue to grow your network with actual local, same focused people, not just the virtual stuff that we're doing here.
Absolutely.
All right. So with that, as I mentioned, we did have a handful of questions in the success group. So starting with Anil, do we have Anil on the call?
Didn't see him join.
Okay. So the question was, can we update custom metadata from a particular profile, not for the admin via an Apex class? Squire, is this the one that we were chatting about on the side about Trailhead?
Yeah, context clues from the post made me think that it might be in response to a trail, just because of the places that he was at mentioning and some of the commentary. And we just wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about what that means. So obviously we all want to help, and in any way that we can, and we're not going to try to, peel open every onion to see if this is for a certification or for a super badge. But because this one felt like it might be, we wanted to just call out and remind everyone of the Salesforce Credential and Certification Agreement and Code of Conduct, which is pretty well written and suggests that those attempts are by you and you alone, and help might affect both your as well as anyone who helps you, their ability to be connected to the program. We can go into more detail, Daly. You said it way better than I did in the text, but I think it's just a really important call for everyone that we're all in it to help each other, but just be sure you help each other within the constraints of the certification agreement code of conduct.
Exactly. It's like when we were all in school and you took a test, if you cheated off your neighbor, you got called for it. That's essentially what Salesforce has put in their guidelines. Even if it is just a Trailhead module, it's still part of their educational program. It's the same reason why if you see data dumps about certification exams online, report it to Salesforce. That it degrades the quality of the achievement and what Salesforce is trying to foster for actually accrediting people to be specialists in the things that they've gone for. So we've all been there. We've all been stuck. Like I don't, 5-6 years ago, I think when super badges first started, I think I was trying to do CPQ and I was stuck on something on product object that I eventually had to do like a wonky data load to fix it. I spent maybe a good 5-6 hours banging my head on the desk, but I eventually figured it out. That's what they want you to do. They want you to figure it out on your own, because that is what will give you the, all right, you know what you're doing. We've been there. It sucks being stuck. Sometimes you got to sit in the suck. We're sorry. Them's the rules. So,
yep. He did post his code. I think if you wanted to try to follow up, the link is, or the post is in our chat. as long as you're not answering how to finish that trail, you could probably speak to the topic if it's important or if it's something that you think is valuable. I mean, I think the short answer is, yeah, you can definitely update custom metadata by, across the board. But as far as answering the specific question, I was a little concerned. So we'll move on. The second one, unfortunately, I didn't see Denise join either. So her question was, she had some questions about the translation workbench. She was getting some corrupted errors in the files, and she was just wondering if anybody had experience both either with translation workbench or a replacement tool. If you do and you want to help Denise figure this thing out, I recommend heading over to the success group and posting there, starting a conversation. I think she was hoping to get on a call with someone. So if you know it, let her know.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
she did she's done a lot for this program as well as MVPs in general, so she could use a little karma there. So if you can help her, please do.
Absolutely. So Mary Lynn is the next question. I don't see her on the list, and I really wish we could have her, because this when I read this was awful. I can only imagine what the situation actually was. But is there a way to see essentially the field history tracking or audit trail on a user's last name being changed? Unfortunately, a female user had her last name changed to something incredibly inappropriate, which is awful and absolutely unexcusable and should never be tolerated in any way, shape, or form. What is also unfortunate is, to my knowledge, we still don't have field tracking on user, right?
Yeah. This evolved after Marilyn posted, and Steve Moe was on it. And if you can trust anybody to figure this thing out, it's Steve. The last post I saw, it looked like there might have been a combination of a couple things. So there could have been a translation issue. It sounds like the person in questions, the person whose name appeared to be changed, her actual name translates in another language to the word it was displaying. And there seemed to be some disconnect between what that user thought they could do versus what the user, like the owner of the case, was supposed to do. So it looked like there might be layers to this, and Steve was helping try to figure that out. I think it resolved itself in a positive way, and it wasn't malicious. At least that's what the last post was. But again, if you want to read it and you want to see Steve in action and help in any way you can, that post is there. And if Marilyn joins us, we'll circle back to it. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay. So glad that someone like Steve Moe could chime in on that, because Steve's had a lot of history helping people with issues like this. It just reminds me, I want to take just a moment to encourage people to think about what you're setting up in your orgs a little bit before you do it. I've seen a lot of help desk orgs that maybe didn't choose the right way to go. In fact, I saw one org that had their users were in a difficult situation and had a lot of callers call in very angry and disgruntled, and their agents popped in to say, we have some callers that we just don't want to take their calls anymore, and can we add something to their account, to their contact, to say, these are problematic people. Can we add like a field to it? And their admins did add a field to it. Unfortunately, they named that field, that checkbox, an inappropriate name. And which was fine at the time. They thought that was fine until they got around to the point where auditors wanted to report on all their contacts, and then saw that field and then said, why are you reporting this name on people? And it didn't look good on the Salesforce admins to see a particular flag on a lot of people's names. So just think about what you're doing inside of your org when you're doing it, even if you're having people that you know are problematic.
Right. Ugh.
Good call, Stuart. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, last one was Laura.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see Laura on the call today either, but I do see the person who responded to that thread. So, Andrew, do you want to, Is there anything you want to offer as far as what you read there and what you were trying to help her find her way toward?
I mean, I guess, yeah, all that it really was is that she had a session-based permission set and she was adding that to a group. But what she really needed to do is make a session-based group, and then she could have the permissions set in it, because like the group doesn't become session-based just because you added a session-based permission set to the group. So it's the actual like what's assigned to the user that controls the session-based. So she just needs to make a group that is session-based.
And I
Pretty easy.
didn't see if she had responded to your post. I know that you.
I don't think she did.
Okay. Did she give you a best answer?
Nope,
It's unfortunate.
I don't really expect it. So I just, no.
If you do that, does it then make the entirety of the permissions within the permission set group session based?
It makes
would
the
then,
permission
right?
set group session-based.
Right. So that's
But that's-
potentially problematic. But
So that's why either
That's-
you assign the permission set directly to
Yeah.
the group, one of
Right.
the two,
that makes sense. I think that's
or
still
make
the
a
right
separate
answer.
group that's session-based. Yeah, I mean, the documentation lays it out pretty good.
All right. So I want to jump to the next page because there was lots of really good questions in the chat, and I didn't do a very good job of doing anything other than tracking names. So we're going to jump back to the top. First one, Heather Donaldson, you're planning to prepare for the PD1 and then on to your architect certification roadmap. Questions about the best ways to prepare for a PD1 exam? Anybody want to offer some thoughts? It looks like folks on Force and Udemy are the primaries, but I'm sure anything's helpful.
Focus on Force has always gotten me over the finish line where I needed it.
So I'm really old, and I think a lot of people will roll their eyes when I say this, but I read the Apex Developers Guide. Not the whole thing. Like there's like 2,000 pages of reference libraries at the end, which if you read the first 700 pages, you don't need to pass the exam. But I think if we're looking for just what exactly does Salesforce say about Apex, that's it. And if you're really serious about wanting to understand exactly how Apex works on the platform and what the implications are, that's it, right? That's the book. So it's available. It's online.
You have a link
Oh, sorry,
ready for that.
sorry.
I can get one real quick.
Okay, perfect.
Is it fair to say, Mike, that developer guide never leaves arm's reach as you continue your career too?
And I mean, I have a handful of things that are constantly referenced. The Apex Developer Guide is a pretty big one. And then the SOAP Object Guide, there is nothing better. I don't know why, but the SOAP API Guide is really, really good.
Thanks for posting that link in the chat, Heather. If you don't already have a quick link to it, there it is.
Can I ask a follow-up question with that? Because I'm trying to learn it myself. So, Mike, even though, like, I don't know when the book was published, but, you know, you publish the book and they come out with new things, would you say that since you're still using it all the time, the first 700 pages are still completely relevant?
Yeah, I should clarify. It is a book in terms of its length, but the Apex Developer Guide is really it is evergreen and it is maintained. So you'll see things in it that reference specific API versions where it's like, hey, this was true up until version 24, but from version 24 to 56, it's different. And then this didn't show up until version 35 or whatever. So it is an active maintained document that is how Apex works. I say is because, you know, everything with a grain of salt, but
Well, and
Okay.
flipping the paradigm on that, you know, yes, you included references to this was available until or starting with. You can
Right.
also dynamically change what API context of the Apex Developer Guide.
yeah, you can. It's in the corner.
Yeah. That feels like a very unglamorized feature.
Yeah, it is super cool though.
Yeah.
If you're ever having compatibility issues, like I've got like what are they deprecating right now? Everything before 30,
Yep.
I think maybe. So it's
30.
like I've had some really old classes that were in a Financial Force implementation for a customer. Being able to jump back in time is an amazing feature. To Dale's point, it's pretty clutch, and they'll continue to maintain that, right? Because it's how, as we go and do complex things, having the real source is pretty critical.
Yep.
And I just want to take a second and maybe pull back the curtains a little bit on this whole preparing for a certification exam, because there's many people on this call who are part of the stakeholders or the subject matter experts that help out with creating certification exams. And I put a link in the chat here on the exam guide for the PD1. And just to say that when creating a certification exam, Salesforce thinks about what is the minimum qualified candidate to take the exam. What do you need to know? What do you need to be able to do in order to pass a Platform Developer 1 exam and get that credentials? And they're not meaning to trick you into doing it. They want you to know this stuff. And so on that exam guide page are the things that they want you to know. They have listed out a bulleted list of these are the things that we need you to know. And they have another bulleted list of the exam outline of these are the percentages of questions they're going to come under development fundamentals and process automation. And they'll list out this is what's going to be on the questions. And when the questions are written, these are the things that are going to be part of it. So you could take those lines and make sure, do I understand how to apply Apex control flow statements? If I don't know that, I should probably study that. And so when I take tests, I look at the exam guide and I make little cards. And I write out those cards as study cards and say, do I know this? If I don't, I better study that and use that as a memorization or a study tool. I'm not saying that you should do that, but that's just something that helps me. And if I know everything on that card, then that will help me to study for the test. But it's just something that's a Salesforce Exam 101, that look at that exam page. They are telling you exactly what you need to know when you walk into that exam.
Which is also exactly why, going back to the very top, the code of conduct. This is meant for you to learn and absorb and study, not to share with others to diminish the quality of the learning experience as well as the certification experience.
All right.
I just quickly added another tool for practicing Apex coding that I learned about in Rad Women 1. So if you need some practice just writing code, I know that's not strictly like exam study, but it's a cool little tool that has practice problems where you get to write the code in a little sandbox. So
Oh, that's awesome. Great share. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sarah. And I mean, I think that also goes to everybody learns differently as well. So this might not have been at the top of your list, but it might be at the top of someone else's list that got them over the hump. So awesome share. Thank you.
I'm not sure who said it, but I think, Stu, what you were talking about paraphrases down to something I've always kind of lived by, which is don't memorize it, understand it. And that's how you pass the exam. And that's true for all of them. So when you look at that exam guide, don't try to like regurgitate boldface keywords and like remember page numbers. It's like, do you understand that bullet point? It's yeah, and you should be able to answer it for yourself before you take that exam too. So.
Do you really want me to go into how much I love Simon Sinek and the Golden Circle, and it starts with why and then how and then what? If you're leading with what, you got a problem. Why, how?
I mean, very much to that point, though, there's, aside from the MQC definition, there's this concept of Bloom's taxonomy, and they talk about like what is the level or the depth of the question. Remembering or reciting the answer is a level 1. I've never written or seen a level 1 question. Everything is a level 2 or a level 3, where you actually have to consider and apply to some degree, except for associate. Associate has some, do you remember the name of this thing? But outside of that, that's not what we test.
Mhm.
Good stuff.
All
All
right.
right.
A lot of
Bill-
links that we will get into the deck. Probably need to move on.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, lots of good stuff here. Why don't we
Above,
jump to
above all,
Martin?
hey, good luck, Heather, and keep us posted.
Martin, I'm going to let you reiterate what you were typing in that little window just to make sure we don't miss anything, if that's okay.
Just fine. So have an org with hundreds of users, new users coming in all the time, but also very older users that have been in the system for a long time. As we've progressed, being able to use Flow and have that little Flow user checkbox on the user account checked is required for just about anything from day to day. So there's lots of old users that don't have that checkbox and that need it. And anytime someone's onboarded, it's often that checkbox doesn't get checked. So I'm looking for some strategies to make sure it gets checked. But there's similar things. There's knowledge user. Just about everybody's a knowledge user in our system as well. Little things like that are very annoying to troubleshoot when they're not checked, and easy to overlook when people are setting things up. That makes sense?
It does.
The how we got here doesn't make sense. Your question absolutely makes sense.
So why don't you fill in some details there, Dale? Like, why did you make that statement?
Oh God, I mean, I was literally just talking to a project team member an hour and a half ago about knowledge. Like, knowledge user doesn't preclude you from viewing knowledge, but it definitely makes it difficult to create knowledge. Why do you have to have a checkbox on the user record when knowledge is also still just an object with its own CRUD and field level security? And yeah, you got to remember to check a box on the user record. I'm going to chalk a lot of those weird things up to Salesforce product managers not necessarily collaborating and refactoring with the mission as a whole, is what it is. If anybody smarter than me knows why or how things got to the way they are, like, please, by all means, tell me I'm wrong. But there was a point from Heather included on the profile. Did you say is it you need the flow user to be checked, or is there like an onboarding flow that handles this, or both?
We do not have an onboarding flow.
Okay.
And if that's a suggestion, I'd like to hear more about how to make that happen. But it's just making sure that those appropriate boxes are checked on the user account.
Gotcha. How many profiles versus permission sets are across these hundreds of users?
We have 9 profiles. We are in the middle of migrating from a profile-based solution to a permission set group-based solution. So we will be down to 1 profile when we're done, and 9 permission set groups, and dozens and dozens of individual permission sets.
And are you at 9 profiles now because that's
Yes.
where you've been the whole time, or you've whittled it down to 9 so far?
Whittled it down to 9.
Okay. I mean,
We'll eventually get to 1.
Right.
Do we know what the checkbox does versus the run user, or sorry, run flows permission on perm sets?
I just put that in the chat. According to the help article, which I put in there, if the user has the run flows permission, don't enable this field. So I believe that it evolved into becoming a duplicative thing.
Okay, because that permission is something that I can do at a permission set level.
Correct. Yeah, in the system permissions, the flow user, I believe, will supersede this. And so you should be able to just not worry about it. Similarly, like with knowledge now, there's like a whole set of permissions in the system settings. And I believe those will override what's there. I think the only ones that you can't do that with are marketing user. Marketing user is still very real, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's that actually solved my issue. I can just go ahead and modify my permission sets and ignore that checkbox.
I would test it though, right?
Yeah.
Because
Now, where flow, having some kind of an onboarding flow can actually be really cool for you is at the core. Obviously, anything on the user object is fields that can be updated through a flow mechanism, no different than you manually clicking things on the page. But then when you start getting into permission sets, permission set groups, etc., those are all data in the data model. Permission set assignment is an object with data. Permission set group is an object with data. And so as you get into flow, if you have the context of the user you're trying to do the things for, you've got your user ID to then go query whatever permission sets, permission set groups, whatever, to populate permission set assignment. That if this new user meets the criteria of this particular group, a simple flow takes that user ID and does all the magic in one click, or even potentially automatically based on some other trigger, like however you have it set. But all of that, it's not in the metadata sphere. It's data, so easily at your disposal.
Okay.
All right, Michael, it wasn't really about pop-ups. It was just the only way for me to remember what you started.
That's fine. I got it. I'm gonna share my screen while I ask my question if I can.
Please, let me stop sharing.
Does it come with a puppy?
No puppies.
Don't let him share a screen. Up to
Sorry. So here's my question. Client has they don't love the Salesforce UI, and we're trying to work out some things. In essence, in this, they would like to be able to take sort of micro notes about different topics. Let's just use this as an example. Let's say they wanted to quickly take a micro note about this topic, and then about this topic, and then about this topic. I'm wondering if there is a way that anyone knows about where I could sort of replicate, this functionality, but, obviously with a custom object of my own where I had basically just subject and comments. I could use task if necessary, but be able to have them pop up from the toolbar and they get into this little stack. Even, bonus points if you can tell me how I could pre-fill the subject so that when they pop up, the subjects would be listed here or something like that. More custom than using. I definitely do not want to use this global action because I need, excuse me, I need it to be related to, one of these records. It'd be really cool if I could click the caret here and choose new note here. Anyone?
Aren't there the new buttons that have off of the related list or the list view that you can do a screen flow or something off of that and then kind of create that field or note or something off of that, so you'd be able to check health and wellness, click your button, and then have it go that way? Or am I just scattered on that?
Well, so quick question. Are you saying check this and then there's a related list button, that kind of thing?
Yes. So instead next to new, you might have new note. And so they have the multiple actions thing, but can you do that as a screen flow off of a list view?
So you can definitely do the select a couple of these and choose a button. I don't know if you can launch a screen flow for that. Also, I'd love it if I could pull this off with a quick action, not a screen flow, because it would run so much faster and they won't yell at me as much.
Yeah.
I like where your head is headed, Heather. I think it would depend on potentially the exact data model in this org to be able to then draw the context of health and wellness becomes the subject or whatever. But I feel like it's more robust than a quick action in terms of how much intelligence you're trying to put in it. That even a screen flow could be light enough still to handle what you need from that context jump off point.
Yeah,
And
you
then-
can put the,
Especially if you do a screen flow with a data table. Because hypothetically, if you did a screen flow with a data table and you had the checkmark ones pull in as your collection to be seen, and then you have a note item and then they type it in on the line and it updates all of them.
So
Yeah,
instead of having a related list, have it be a screen flow.
yeah, I've done that multiple times.
A micro is a
Basically, it's like they
micronote.
want what they want, you click next, and then it goes and launches the updates for whatever you've selected on that screen flow.
yeah, they don't love much of what can be done in ScreenFlow. So, and I mean, is there a way to do this kind of pop-up thing? There's
The
nothing like
only
that.
other way I know is with utility bar, but I think you have to be in a console app for that.
Yeah.
You should be able to put a utility bar on any app.
Oh, well, in that case, you can run a flow from a utility bar that will pop up like that.
But it won't
I
have the
don't-
context of where they were up here, right?
If it's
No.
yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
it
gets
sounds
a
like
little tricky because you're not actually in the context of the record that you're looking at, right? You're in the context of the page. So you have to somehow let the interface know what you actually were hovering on before it
Right.
knows that context. And
Sorry.
so that means you have to build it in either into the record or like a lightning component that like reads the screen and says like you selected a thing and it advertising milestones. So now trigger something. Like it gets really dicey as soon as you start.
Which is
Having
why I
that
was
layer,
assuming
right?
it would have to be like under this, I keep clicking there, under this native caret.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I thought you could add options to that drop down. I can't remember anymore.
I
Like
don't
you
think
could,
to the
can't you add
standard
record
component.
actions to that list?
I
Hmm.
this came up literally in the meeting just before office hours started, so I haven't tried playing around at all. But if
Yeah.
no one is like, oh yeah, you can definitely do it, that's not a good sign. But I can go play with it.
I would definitely go to unofficial SF. I mean, that has you down the flow route, but I think a screen flow is what's going to ultimately get you to override what these native lists are going to allow you to do.
I mean, I think Sarah's on the right track because even though I know you said that don't really like screen flows, when they launch from the utility bar, they probably wouldn't even know it's a screen flow. It's just going to look like
yeah.
what you build, right?
Right. No, agreed. Yeah, no, it's not that I couldn't do a screen flow. That's an option. It's
Yeah.
just I've got to be able to get like this where multiple ones of them launch at once, and they really love the idea that 3 of them could be active. They could still click around in the UI a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'm just wondering if to get that related, if somehow like, I don't know how they feel about like a right click, but to take, the copy, the hyperlink of the item up there, be able to put that into the screen flow to get the item number and be able to maybe reactively get the item. So like if it's a what, that it would go to the related, to, or the name if it's a person or something like that. That's an extra click, and I know that my sales team have a hard time with right click.
Yeah.
So like trying to get that, because that's a big thing, and I just recently made like a ticket thing off of the utility, and I'm just copying the URL from the top because that's a lot easier. But to kind of put that in my ticket system so I can get the record, the exact record, that's the issue. Without having them to change, like it would seem like it's fine, but if it's not search accounts, so you got advising milestones, doing that drop down next to the related to get to the advising milestones, to get to the, the next thing, that's too many clicks. And if they don't want it, they're not going to do it,
Well, that's
Let's
what
make it
they're
as
complaining
easy
about
as
already
possible.
is like, I said, well, if you want to take a note about this advising milestone, you click into this milestone and you click new note. Takes you 2 clicks. It's really quick. No, I want to be able to do it all from here, from here and do it for all 3 milestones. Boom, boom, boom. So, all right, well, I will keep playing and maybe I'll report back if I manage to build something clever.
I mean,
They want the
also,
Dumbledore edition.
What'd you say?
How long is it?
One at a time. Christy first.
I just said they want the Dumbledore edition. I don't know if you've seen that table, but I will send it in, which it does everything all at once, all on one page.
And they want it for almost no money.
And that's the thing is it's like I feel like as you're going through this in Denver, you need to have a document going on the side that starts to list out the costs incurred through this solution. I mean, yeah, you can, but here's your maintenance charge down the road, like from a sustainability standpoint. And here's what you can no longer do natively because you went this route. Like it's an offset there. I think, no, I promised I wasn't going to rant. So I'm not going to rant.
Split view wouldn't work as well, Michael. So like going to the list view itself and putting it in split view so that they can kind of just click down and see the screen to the right.
Oh, that's
Maybe?
an interesting idea. Yeah, I'm gonna play with that. I'm gonna take a note about that.
Because, well, I was just going to say, like, they would need the ability to relate multiple notes. So like inline in a list view wouldn't be sufficient because inline is going to be the same record, right?
Right.
Okay.
The worry I have here is what's the active window, and if something were to go awry, or if I had to go to a whole new browser altogether, am I going to lose content if my connection goes down? Like there's a lot of stuff going on all in the same screen here, and my users would freak out if they saw this.
Any chance, going back to Sarah's earlier comment about like maybe they really do want a console and they don't realize it?
Yeah.
I hate
Console apps for everybody. I'll fight you, Michael.
We just said we were going to keep this professional.
No.
Love you.
I love me a console app. Come on.
I mean, there's a time and a place for everything, and that might be it.
Might be. Yeah. They're good suggestions. Thank you all. I will cede the floor.
All right, let's see here. So really quick, Chad was going to ask some questions about a formula. I think what he's really asking for was probably a flow based on the way the short blurb he had in the text, but he had to leave and he's going to post in the success. So I promised him that we'd all go over there after this meeting and help him. So I'm passing the buck.
Do it.
Andrew, email encoding by default. Do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, so I totally thought of this and I realized the problem. Like, I don't know if there's a solution, so I figured I'd ask before I bother trying to even search, because someone might know. Is there a way to default the email encoding on user records? I know I can go change it, but like, how do I default it?
I think it does it for you. And I put this in the chat. If you set your next new user to, I assume you want UTF-8. Then the one you make after that, I'm pretty sure will be UTF-8 as well by default. I was about to build a flow for one of my clients, and then I was like, wait a minute, it just did it for me.
So it's based on the last time you manually create a user?
Or something? I don't know.
So, like, Michael, that feels weird. Is that a feature or a bug?
Yes.
Okay.
Why is it not all UTF-8? If everything needs to be like UTF-8 anyways, why are we not just like...
It doesn't need to be.
Okay, but like emojis, only like UTF-8.
Todd.
And what Joy?
No emojis.
Yes,
emojis in emails are fun.
All the emojis.
No.
Oh God, I don't want to have to edit this in iMovie.
We just talked about this like 2 weeks ago. Emojis break stuff. Come on.
Okay, but emojis in an email that's like, hey, your order is on its way. Here's like a box emoji for like order, and here's like a shipping with like a little link emoji. If you need help, and put like little like helmet with the firefighter thing emoji. It makes it fun.
I agree.
And it's the customer's problem in their inbox if it breaks their inbox. It's not ours. I shouldn't even go outright.
Well, you wouldn't be able to speak in Latin, first of all. So that would be the first problem.
I took 4
Well, I'd
years
have to learn
in
it
high school
first.
and couldn't speak it at baseline. So what?
All of your Latin orders would fail. I'm just saying.
Oh man.
Team Amer. No Latin.
No Latin.
Well, that answers that.
That's
I
your
mean,
answer.
Where's Todd?
I guess first question, like, or going back, what field on the user object manages that?
The one that's called email encoding.
It is
Yeah,
email
email
encoding.
encoding.
Okay. I
Yeah.
thought for some reason it was like a weird offshoot of locale, or like some of those fields have some weird like branch off. So it is email encoding. Okay.
Mhm.
So, okay, sorry, I was multitasking. Can someone clarify for me? So I thought by default it had always been Unicode, and then they were changing it to UTF-8 by org level, but it sounds like you're not seeing that. Like it doesn't, new users aren't automatically going to UTF-8.
Maybe they are, like, because some had it, some didn't. But like I went into like a SQL query to see like just to select ID and the low thing from all users, and some had it, some didn't. But then I was like, well, crap, I can bulk update, but I also need to figure out how do I make sure that new users, I don't just leave it out there and they end up wrong. So it might
Right.
be good.
It looks like Winter 21 is when it converted from Unicode to UTF-8 as the default, but it didn't convert anybody. Any chance these people are like 5 years stuck?
Yeah.
That you might have it. It might be working as you expected, and it's just old data.
And I was one of the old ones stuck. That's probably it.
Maybe. I'm just guessing. I was trying to make sure I understood what you were saying and was typing into the other screen. So
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. If Salesforce is going to implement something that actually forces an organization to change their data, they're going to be screaming it from the rooftops and sending you a million email alerts ahead of time. Whereas if it's just functionality that now defaults things moving forward, they're not touching your data. So that's an easy one to like kind of go under the radar there.
got it.
Or do a large number of your users still print to HP 3000 green lined daisy wheel printers?
Stuart.
Dot matrix.
I feel
Then-
attacked.
Then you
No.
then you don't want to use UT8 encoding.
No, we only have the printers that have the little holes in the side of the paper.
That's
Yeah,
dot
that's
matrix.
what you're talking. That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
it
The
feeds
green,
out like
It's
green-
so old that
White
Andrew
stripes,
didn't know what it
that's
was.
dot
the green sided daisy
Okay.
wheel HP 3000 printers.
Oh
Either-
my God.
There's no way
we-
Andrew's old enough.
Either we just
Stop,
proved how
stop.
young
Oh.
Andrew is or how old we are.
Both.
I might be the youngest person on this call. Just realizing that.
Sarah
Okay.
might give you a run
I'm
for your
guessing you're
money.
correct.
We're really proud
Oh
of you.
no.
Sarah,
Oh no.
We
Sarah
love
gives
it.
you a run for your money.
Oh no. We've had this conversation, Andrew and I.
Love it.
Oh,
Love it.
all right,
What's the
good.
next question? Are you all
I
set?
have fun. We have one left, and we're running out of time. I'm sorry.
You have 9 minutes. Speed round. What is it?
Kathy had a question.
Oh God. Yes. And I've been looking
Oh,
at this for
God.
4 hours. No, I've been looking at this for 4 hours trying to figure it out.
Oh, those are my
I
favorite.
have a holding object that I use to collect information from a form. All the information from the form is coming into the holding object just fine. I have a flow to process it, including checking for contacts and creating an opportunity. About 75% of the fields map just fine to the opportunity, and there are about, the other 25% or 3 of them that don't. And I cannot figure out why not. And they're the same field types. I have edit permission on all of them. I
Is
don't
it-
know. I don't, and I've checked, there aren't any other automations that maybe, changing it after the flow saves. And when I run the debug in the flow, it looks just fine. It maps just nicely, but in reality, it doesn't.
Is it a
When-
screen
when-
flow or an auto launched flow or a record triggered flow? First of all,
Record trigger flow.
do
when
you
you say that,
have field level security on those fields that are not populating?
Yeah, I do.
when you say that there's 25% of them that don't populate, do you mean that that this data migration happens, but 25% are left out?
No, 20, here, let me share my
Or does it
screen,
like
and
actually fail?
well, it doesn't tell me it fails, but it fails.
That's a
So
good sign.
just
If it's not failing, it means it's committing, right?
so just to show you this, if this is the record debugged, and if you see here, transaction fee equals the $1.75, and
Mhm.
which is the other one that usually mucks up.
Mhm.
And the transaction ID is there. This is the record, the holding record that gets all the information. So all these
Mhm.
fields are populated here. But this is the opportunity that gets created, and the check reference number, which should get the ID, and the transaction fee, which should get that $1.75 that you saw in the debug, don't show up.
Did you activate the flow?
Yes, that's how this got
Uh,
created.
How
Have
many?
any workflows that go
Did
in, like, might be usurping it?
No,
Well,
there aren't any other ones. I checked for that.
so the fields that don't have pencil icons, are those formula fields?
Yes.
Is there any potential chance you're trying to leverage calculations of those formulas to then populate additional fields? And if the formulas haven't calculated yet, they don't have a chance to do anything downstream?
This one calculates based using this. So the net payment amount is the payment amount, or the amount that's up here
Okay.
somewhere.
So it's not
Minus the
it's going
transaction fee.
in a weird direction. It's
Yeah,
that's-
no, it,
okay.
yeah, I thought of that too. And it's like, no, it comes afterwards. So it should, in theory, should be fine.
Okay.
So when in that debug, when it tells you that it's assigning that value to that field, it passes. Like, is that the assignment node right there?
Right there. That's exactly what should happen. But it's not when it gets, like I said, it's not
Why
what
isn't
happens
it-
in reality.
Any chance you're trying to put text into a number field and it doesn't know what to do with it?
No, I checked. They're both currency fields.
Okay.
16.2, both of them.
I asked. Well, yeah, okay.
No, yeah, I've been going, like I said, I've been looking at this all day. I've been checking everything.
So I had
So-
an issue where I was trying to move currency to currency with a flow and it didn't work. I had to translate it to text and shove it into currency for it to show up. Don't ask me why. I just stumbled on that and it worked.
Because isn't currency just a number field at its core?
But you got a symbol in front of it.
Yeah.
So you
No,
might
but
give
this-
that a shot and see
You
if
know,
it helps.
I've
symbol's
seen
not
that-
stored. The symbols convert the conversion rate, right? Like, it's not actually stored with a currency with a dollar sign in front of it.
I've seen that same thing before. Currency, saving currency, and it doesn't come out right. It just fails to save.
But
Where did I see
the
that?
amount one works just fine, which is like the one up here. That's currency to currency as well, and it works just fine.
Okay.
So
So I still, okay, I want to make absolutely sure we close off on this, that, so currency fields that someone said has experienced in the past fail to save,
they've
but the commit to the database doesn't fail. It just like blanks errors out, right? That's my
Correct.
pause.
It's like it doesn't know what to do with it, so it just drops it.
So
Or
then are
gets
those
converted to
fields,
nothing.
so then are those fields having something done to them downstream to populate other fields, and those are the fields that aren't getting populated?
Yeah,
Like if this is a currency field issue at its core, and those currency fields are unable to do their thing, but they are expected to drive other fields in this flow logic, multiplying anything by 0 is still 0. So doing anything to a blank
Right,
value is
right,
still
right.
blank.
it wouldn't work. We need another breakpoint because the breakpoint here shows a value. So
it's
somewhere
like-
down the road, the value goes away.
It's like you need to get a little bit more modular here of like breaking down the math and the dependencies into smaller chunks so that fields, if this is the case, fields have the ability to commit to the database before they are then leveraged again downstream versus trying to get it all done in one node in one fell swoop. Do it more agile rather than waterfall.
okay.
I would test that out. I would also, going back to field level security, so just to make absolutely sure, you as, or is this you as like a system admin who's testing this and having the failures, or is it an end user?
No, it's me as system admin.
So, okay, so debug runs in system context, right? Not of a specific profile or a user.
Yeah, unless you set it to say run as this person. Yeah.
Okay. Because it, like, even though you're a system admin, you may not have edit capabilities on fields that are now being prevented from updating. And this debug, if it's running in system context, doesn't care about that. It's just saying, well, here's what it should do. So it's a disconnected experience. I would just make absolutely sure that your fields are edit for your profile plus permission sets.
Yep. Well, they were. I'll double check, but yeah, okay.
Can you just type in that field, like in the record that it's saved? Can you edit it and type into that field?
Yep.
Okay.
So put in a number and save it. Does it save that value?
Oh, well, let's try writing that in North American.
Because that would answer Dale's question.
Yep. There, it saves and and the calculation works.
Okay.
So.
But that calculation's a formula field, isn't it?
Yeah, this was a formula field, so that's what I made. Like even me just editing and adding it in.
I gotta jump, but if you try the theory that like putting in plain text instead of currency, you could use, you could do it via a formula in the flow, turn it into text or something. Because obviously you could write to that field.
Ooh, I like that. The variable, you didn't create a variable to store the value. It's actually the record value variable.
I'm sorry, I lost you.
That's okay. So when you're setting that value, you didn't create a brand new variable. You're just using the record level variable.
Correct.
Okay. I've seen people do that where you accidentally create a text field that you think you're storing a number in, and it looks great in the debug until you
well, and that's an interesting thing because, to be honest, the information for the transaction fee actually comes from Stripe, so it could be that may be the missing step, and I'm trying to recreate something else. So I'll try that text thing and
Squire, to your comment,
put a text value into a currency field, right?
Yeah, and see if that works.
That's what I was doing when I fixed it. I was using the record, the dollar record, but I used a formula field to make sure it was text before I assigned it to the record.
Right.
Well, and if all else fails, one thing you can do if you're not aware is if you have dev console open and you run it, then it'll spit you out a log. It'll be kind of painful sometimes to go through all the log rows, but it can tell you what's going on.
Oh, okay.
Kevin, really quick, you said this information is stored in a record of its own?
Yep.
Would you go to the object definition for that and check that field just to make sure we can cross that off? Because like you said, if it's coming from Stripe as text and it's being stored in that field as text, you kind of solved the problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's stored in there, but no, but I'm pretty sure I set that field up as currency.
Oh, it is currency. Okay, cool.
So
just crossing off the list.
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt and remind everyone that we're past the top of the hour. And so if you have a 2 o'clock meeting or a 3 o'clock meeting, whatever time zone you happen to be on, you got to go. And that's me too. So I got to go. Squire and Dale, you do what you got to do. But don't be late for your meetings. Do the work things. Talk to you guys later.
Bye, Joy.
Thanks, Joy.
Bye, everybody else who needs to drop off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's me.
Okay. I'll try those out and see. Maybe, and yeah, that text to currency sounds intriguing. So I'll give that a shot and keep my fingers crossed because it's the only thing that's holding me from letting this go live.
Yeah, since it's not erroring, it's actually committing the record. It just makes me think it doesn't know how to store the value, and it's like when you store like 1 in a percentage, and it's like, well, is that 100? You didn't expect 100, right? So like,
yeah,
I think that's a good step. But make sure if it doesn't work, we get you at the top of the list next week.
Well,
yeah, this has to be solved today because I'm
Oh.
leaving.
Right.
I
I'm
was
going
gonna
away
say,
for the
like,
month, so I got to get this fixed first.
I was gonna say, if you've been staring at it for 4 hours, my other suggestion would be shut
Stop
down
st-
and pick it back up on Monday so your brain can recharge. And I'm sure it's the first thing that'll
Yeah.
happen on Monday. But if you got to do this today, you got to do it today.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Okay. No
Yeah.
worries. But thank
Good-
you. Thank you for
good-
the input,
Good luck.
everyone. Much
Yeah.
appreciated.
Good luck.
Bye
Thank
all.
you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
good holiday.
Yep.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.